and welcome back to the Building Your Brand podcast. And I am back with my last solo episode of the summer. Now, I say that it's my last solo episode of the summer. Like, when I say the summer, I mean the summer series, because obviously it's October now, so it's not summer anymore. But I did 3 months of solo episodes, and I'm really pleased with how it all went. Now, my plan was originally to stop the solo episodes and to go back to interview episodes, and that is still happening, but I've actually made quite a surprising to me decision about the podcast. Now, I was messaging my friend Lois, who I work with in my business pretty regularly, about what I was going to do with the podcast going forward. And I suggested to her that maybe next year I should alternate interview episodes and solo episodes, because I have really enjoyed putting these solo episodes together. I feel like I'm in a flow with them now. I've worked out how I like editing them. And she suggested that instead of doing that I just keep the solo episodes going and I release 2 podcast episodes a week. Now, if you had said this to me maybe like 6 months ago, I would have said there's absolutely no way I can keep that up. And one of the things that I am really committed to with the podcast is that like episodes, so my interview episodes, they go out every Wednesday. And they're going to continue to go out every Wednesday. And I don't want to say that I'm going to do something unless I know I can actually do it. But what is really nice is that I've got into such a habit from doing the 12 solo episodes over the summer that I'm pretty certain that I can keep this up. So what I've decided is that I'm going to give myself the rest of the year to try this new posting schedule, which is 2 episodes a week. So basically there will be an interview episode on a Wednesday and there'll be a solo episode on a Friday, and they will go out regularly as I've said, and we'll see how it goes. And at the end of the year I'll take stock, and if it ended up being too much or it was really difficult to keep up, then I will rethink and maybe just go back to interview episodes, or maybe like the odd solo episode like here and there. But so I hope that you're going to enjoy this. I mean, hopefully people seem like they've really enjoyed these solo episodes, maybe like a bit shorter, hearing a bit more of my opinion. If you've got any thoughts on this, then I would love to hear it. It'll be interesting to see sort of what impact it has on the podcast as a whole. So I'm back with my final one of this like summer series, but I'll be back again next week with another episode. Next week is actually going to be juicy because I'm going to talk about being trolled. Over the summer I've been a little bit trolled, not anything super serious, but it's been interesting to sort of think about my reaction to that and how it's felt. And so I thought I'd do quite a vulnerable one and share it. But for today's, I'm going to do a bit of a Q&A. So I put a question box up on my Instagram and I'm going to answer some of those questions. A lot of them are podcast related, which I love. So let's dive in. Okay, the first question is, what would have to happen for you to stop podcasting? And do you know what? This is really hard for me to answer. I think probably this comes across and I've talked about it a lot, but podcasting is pretty much my favorite way of creating content and marketing my business. And I have been so committed to getting episodes out for the last 4 years. And like this year and last year, podcast episodes have gone out weekly. I don't think I've missed any. It is the most consistent thing that I do in my business. So I actually think it would take a lot for me to stop doing it. I guess one thing would be budget. So I do outsource the editing of the episodes. I'm not going to for the solo episodes, but all of the other episodes will be edited by my podcast editor, Lucy Lucraft. So obviously there's a cost involved to that. So I guess cost would be a factor, but then I think even if I couldn't afford to outsource that anymore, then maybe I would just stick with solo episodes going forward. So I don't think that would stop me doing the podcast. Probably illness, to be honest. If I was really unwell and had like a long period of recovery, I think that would probably be the only thing that would stop me doing it. Or I guess maybe if I don't know, if I got really badly trolled for the podcast, or I don't know, I can't even imagine that would happen either. I think those would be the only 2 instances that I would consider stopping podcasting. I'm like I'm pretty committed, I'm going to be honest. I really love doing it. So yeah, that's what would have to happen. Okay, next question. Least favorite podcasting task. Ooh, that is a good one. I think I have a love-hate relationship with having to listen back to the episode. Like once I've made the thing, I don't really love going back to go over it again. But I do listen to all of the podcast episodes before they go out, whether it's a solo episode or whether it's an interview episode. So, I mean, I like it in the sense that sometimes it's been a while since I recorded it and I almost like feel like I get to enjoy it afresh. I don't like it in the sense that, I don't know, it feels like one of those jobs that I have to get done that sometimes feels a little bit like a chore, especially if like there's amends that need to go back and then I have to listen to it again to check the amends. Once I go beyond listening to the episode once, I'm like, oh no, I'm done with that. I think another one is show notes, and I outsource that because I don't find that really easy to do. It doesn't feel like the best use of my time. So maybe show notes as well. I think all the other tasks I enjoy. I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything else. I mean, I think part of the reason that I find podcasting sort of easy to commit to is that I do enjoy a lot of the process. Okay, next question. You have a client deadline and a podcast deadline that clash. What wins? Okay, this is such a horrible question. I mean, it's a good question. The client deadline will pretty much always win. That is my priority, my deadlines for my clients. But I've kind of set things up so that I'm never in that position. So I record my podcast episodes way ahead of schedule. And with these solo episodes that I'm going to carry on doing, I'm going to try and batch create them again so that I'm never in a kind of like, oh my goodness, I need to get a podcast episode out tomorrow and I haven't recorded it. Like I don't want to ever be in that situation. And that is what has allowed me to be really consistent because I'm so far ahead in recording them. You know, there's never that last minute, like, oh, I haven't got something. It's happened to me occasionally, like a couple of times. I actually had this really cool thing that I did a couple of years ago, and this was totally Hannah's idea, Hannah Isted. So I'm going to give her all of the credit for this. But basically, I think someone had to postpone their podcast recording. And for some reason, I wasn't as far ahead as I thought I was. And so I had a gap. And because of the way that I work with Lucy, like it's very, like we've got this real strong sort of routine going. So I needed to have the next episode with her probably like by Monday for her to edit. So what I did was I sent an email out to my email list and I basically was like, I have got a slot on this is the time that I want to record. So it was like the exact time that the person couldn't do anymore. If you are free like for that slot, then send me a pitch and I'm going to pick one of you to come on the podcast. And it was really, really cool. It worked really well. And actually what ended up happening was I recorded the episode on that day, but so many of the pitches were really, really good that I ended up recording with a whole load of people from my email list who'd sent in cool ideas. And I was just like, yeah, actually, I want to record this, but we'll just do it in a couple of months or later in the year or whatever. So that was actually really, really cool. A couple of times, Hannah, who came up with that idea, has bailed me out. So there was one instance where I was like, I've got a gap. Will you come on and fill it for me? And so I think like literally about 10 minutes later, we recorded an episode. So it's nice to have people like that who are like super flexible, really comfortable doing a podcast episode. I know like that Hannah and I can have a brilliant conversation about pretty much anything. When I say brilliant conversation, I mean we're very comfortable with each other. We have a lot of things to say. We spend our days voice noting each other. So basically our podcast episodes are often just our voice note chats brought to a podcast and recorded. So yeah, so thankfully, like I can't actually think of a time when that has happened, but the honest answer is I would prioritize the client deadline over the podcast deadline. And I think although I'm really strict with myself about being really consistent with the podcast, I think I'm probably at the point now where I've built enough trust and consistency that if I turned around and was like, look, this week there isn't going to be an episode, everyone would be totally fine about it. And then I would just go back to my consistent schedule. But I do think that it makes a big difference that I don't do that often, if ever. Like people really know when the next episode is coming out. So I think that helps for sure. Okay, someone has asked, what hasn't worked that you've tried before? Which is a really interesting question. I don't think that one's podcast related. So I'm going to share something that I tried. And the caveat is I think it could have worked, but it just wasn't for me. So quite early on in me running this sort of version of my business, so since I kind of went all in on being self-employed, I decided that I was going to set up brand templates. So basically what the deal was is that I was creating lots of designs and concepts for my clients. So controversially, and unlike other designers, I often present 3 different concepts to a client for them to choose from. And they were often quite different. They all answered the brief, but they were often quite different in style so that they had something to compare and contrast. I basically had all of these different concepts that I really loved, but that weren't getting used. And a lot of them I could almost turn into a template. So I spent ages setting up these brands. So they were all pre-designed, and basically you would buy it off the shelf. So you would just kind of put it in your cart in a shop, and you could add sort of bonus sort of things if you wanted. So I would just update the name and I would update the color palette, and then you could basically buy this brand off the shelf, but it would cost a lot less. But the other thing that was really good about it is, so I've seen a lot of people on Etsy, for example, they'll sell a brand, but they'll sell it over and over and over and over and over again. And yeah, it'll be really, really cheap, $50. But obviously someone else, another business could end up with, pretty much the exact same brand as you. Just maybe a different brand name, but the actual look of it was the same. Whereas in this instance, it was completely unique to you. So that wasn't going to be an issue. So I spent ages, I set that all up. I did sell a couple of them, but my heart just wasn't in it. And so I decided, not very long after doing it, I decided not to do it. And I've seen other people do it really successfully. I don't think the idea is bad, because I think there are some businesses, I kind of tried to answer this, I guess, with my Design Your Own Branding course. There are businesses that don't have the budget, to pay thousands of pounds for a brand. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think they still need branding. And so this was quite a nice solution for that. But I just didn't work that well with that process of working, getting it all ready, getting it all set up, and not knowing if it was going to sell or not. And so ultimately I just didn't really enjoy it. So it didn't work for me. So I decided not to continue with it. And I do think that, with businesses, it is good to be experimental and try things. I'm glad I tried it out. It helped me realize it wasn't for me. Yes, I spent a lot of time working on it. I don't think it was wasted time because I learned lessons, but I guess, someone might think that was wasted time. So yeah, that was something that hasn't worked that I tried. But that's not to say that it wouldn't work for somebody else. Okay, let me see what other questions we've got. Okay, someone said, what's the kindest thing people have said about your podcast? And I think one of my favorite compliments that I've had about the podcast quite a few times is when people say to me, you asked the questions that I wanted to ask. So they'll be listening along and they'll be thinking, oh, I really want to know this. And then I'll ask that question. And then they're like, yeah, great. That was what I would have wanted to ask. And that always gives me a real boost, because the whole goal of it is that the people listening are getting to learn what they want to learn. And obviously, I'm never going to ask exactly the questions that everybody wants to ask. But I think that always really encourages me. And I think that that's a really lovely compliment that people have paid me. Yeah, I love that. Okay, next question. Why no live shows yet? Now, doing a live podcast recording was one of my goals for 2026, and it hasn't happened, and it isn't going to happen in 2026, but it is in the works for 2027. So I think the thing that's tricky with it is that there's quite a lot of moving parts that need to come together. So the point I'm at the moment is I have the guest, I have the tech support, so to record it and film it. The bit that is missing is the venue. So basically, I just need to lock in the venue and the date. It will be in Cardiff. I might set up a wait list so that people can say that they're interested. I think if you're sort of like Cardiff, Bristol, Swansea based, you know, like if you're around those areas, then hopefully you'll want to come. But yes, it is happening in early 2027. I just need to lock in some details, but I will definitely communicate as soon as I do. I'm hoping that before the end of the year, tickets will be on sale for a live Building Your Brand podcast recording. When I say live, there'll be a live audience. It won't go out onto the podcast live. I just want to like clarify that. But yeah, so hopefully that'll be all ready to go by the end of the year in terms of buying tickets. And yeah, you've heard it here first that is the plan. I'm excited about it. It has been a goal of mine for a really long time, and it finally seems like things are clicking into place and it's going to be a reality. Okay, I think that is all of the questions. I did get one saying, do you sell products featuring your handwriting? Now, I used to, in a previous version of my business, sell stuff like that, sell stuff with my hand lettering on. So it would be like quote prints, cards, all sorts of stationery that had my hand lettering on. I closed that business after having my second child, and basically I got to the point where I either needed to go all in with this stationery business or all in with my design services, and I just didn't feel like I could take both of them where I wanted them to go at the same time. So I shut my stationery business. So as a result, I do not currently sell anything with my hand lettering on or with my handwriting on. But thank you for that question. It's nice to remember that that was something that I used to do, and you never know, maybe I will again in the future, but for now there isn't anything. So anyway, I hope those questions were the sort of questions that you would also ask, and I hope you enjoyed listening to the answers. So as I mentioned, this is my final episode of this summer series. I mean, it feels silly saying this over and over again because I am going to continue these solo episodes. So next week I will be back with another interview episode, and I'm excited for you to all hear that. And I've got a great set of guests lined up for the rest of the year. I'm really, really pleased with some of the interviews and the people that said yes, but the solo episodes won't be going anywhere either. So that is going to be interesting. And it is all an experiment. Like, that is something that's really important to me. So I'm going to try it out. And I really appreciate you like listening to my podcast. If you haven't left a review recently, I would love for you to do that because that really helps and makes a difference. I got bored of asking for that because, you know, like on every podcast, it's like, please leave a review. I really appreciate it every time you do. I'd love to get up to 100 reviews. That would be amazing on Apple Podcasts. So yeah, if you haven't done it, please leave a review. But also, I do genuinely love hearing what you think. So if you've got any opinions and thoughts on the solo episodes, if you've got thoughts on the idea of 2 podcast episodes coming out a week, I'd love to hear it. And also, the other thing that I should mention is that the solo episodes have all been going onto my YouTube channel, and that will continue to happen. So if you prefer to watch podcast episodes on YouTube, you'll be able to listen to the solo episodes there. Some of the interviews might end up on YouTube. I haven't totally decided yet, but I am on a little bit of a YouTube journey at the moment, and maybe I'll talk about that a bit more. But I have posted a couple of vlogs, which has been really fun. I'm sort of doing a bit more like documenting behind the scenes, sharing these solo episodes, and yeah, maybe some of the interviews will eventually make on their way to YouTube. And, you know, one of my goals for the end of the year is trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you enjoy YouTube content, then please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. Anyway, that's all my begging for subscribes and reviews and all that sort of stuff done. And thank you so much for joining me. And I'll be back next week with 2 podcast episodes. So let's see how that goes.